Hi, and welcome to a brand new webcast For Your Review. I'm your host, Scott Birmingham.
I'm Ross Martin.
And today we're talking about the movie, well, all of Hollywood is talking about, Drive, with Ryan Gosling. As it says, a blood-pumping thrill ride of a movie. Yeah, not so much. Action, not so much. Last weekend, it drove its way all the way to number 3 at the box office. So that's saying something. And guess what made it to number 1?
Lion King.
Lion King. Not just Lion King in
3D.
That's right.
Have you seen it yet?
And they're two different movies.
Did you get to see it?
I did see it.
Yeah.
Well, I saw it when they did a media screening in Sacramento. I saw it, and I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was like watching The Lion King a whole new way. Cool.
I'm considering seeing it. It's also coming out on Blu-ray pretty soon, so I got to kind of pick and choose. But I mean, I saw the movie when I was really young, and it was like my favorite, movie at the time. My favorite animated movie. Still probably one of my favorite of all time. But anyway, we're not talking about that.
Exactly. we're talking about.
It's fine. It's a movie show. We're
talking about a number 1 movie to a number
on tangents for every movie.
3 movie, Drive. Let's talk a little bit about this cast. First of all, Hugh Jackman was originally cast in the role that Ryan Gosling ended up picking up. My first thought is, I don't know if Ryan Gosling would have been my ideal choice for this particular role. I loved Bryan Cranston. He had a little bit of a smaller part, and I've always been a big fan of Albert Brooks. And this was against the typecast of what he usually does, which is typically a little bit more on the comedic scale. So to take this in a lot more serious role, I thought he did pretty well, I thought. I was into his character. It didn't go up and down at all with me. It was pretty straightforward. I actually have to admit it was kind of fun watching Albert Brooks play a ruthless guy.
I wasn't a fan of his performance at all.
Oh, well.
You're wrong.
I thought it was great.
I just felt his lines were really forced, and it was just, it wasn't my favorite performance.
Well, the movie itself, the story is based on a book, and apparently a lot of the book is told in flashbacks, taken from here timeline, go back and forth, so it's not a complete narrative piece. The person who adapted it to a film, he was talking about how challenging it was taking this book and putting it to a feature film kind of storytelling, if you will.
Right.
I think I would have liked to see Hugh Jackman play this part because, there's a whole lot of talking that Gosling doesn't do, which I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with an actor who doesn't talk. That's fine. I mean, Clint Eastwood has made a fine living off of playing actors that don't say anything more than 2 words in 90 minutes. So I don't have a problem with that. It's buying into a whole character that just seems to has a lot on his plate, maybe, just a moody kind of a guy. That's just how he is, and he's got this shifty or shady background to him. I just felt like, Ryan Gosling just wasn't much interesting to be around.
Well, that was the character. The character wasn't that interesting to be around. He wasn't like a super interesting character. He was just a guy that did his job, didn't really care emotionally. And the movie, I think, was about him starting to get more emotionally involved, like in his life. Because at the beginning, you see he's just totally detached from everything. He's doing this job. The movie opens up with, one of his driving jobs, a heist kind of bank getaway type of thing. And you just see his face the whole time. He just doesn't care. He's just trying to do his job, get it over with, get his money, and move on. And then he eventually meets this girl and her son and kind of becomes really attached to them. You can kind of see the change in his character because he becomes more of a ruthless individual because he's not just because he's trying to do his job, but because he's trying to protect like human beings that he's actually starting to care about. So I think he accomplished that. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but you can kind of see.
I didn't see the depth in the character, even if you're transitioning from being a quiet type of a person to having emotions and feelings towards another person who you're starting to spend time with. And this shouldn't be confused with an action film, because a lot of the trailers are showing this as sort of a nail-biting action-driven film.
The first scene kind of was. The first scene kind of plays it up to be, but yeah, the rest of it is, it's more of a slower kind of a
it's very
crime
slow,
drama.
Which isn't terrible, but in my mind, I wasn't there to watch a slow movie. I was there to watch an action-packed film.
I don't care what you were there
I know you don't.
I care what you saw.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the director. The director was when Hugh Jackman, the scheduling and the window fell out for him to be involved with it. Gosling came on, and he had the opportunity to hand-pick his director for this film. That was Nicholas Winding Refn. I've never heard of him before. And this was apparently he does a lot of films that he writes, and this was the first movie he's ever done that he really didn't have a hand in scripting.
He did that Valhalla Rising movie a few years back.
The what?
Valhalla Rising.
Oh, okay, I never saw that one.
Okay.
Now, by contrast, I wasn't much of a fan of this movie. At the 2011 Cannes Film Festival, Drive was not only praised, but it received a standing ovation at the ending of the movie. Did you give it a standing ovation when you were done watching it?
No, I wasn't thrilled with it. I didn't think it was a perfect movie, but I definitely enjoyed it. I mean, it's not a bad movie at all. It's entertaining. I think they accomplished what they were trying to accomplish, but the thing I didn't like about it is where the kind of direction it took the second half, because at one point this girl that he starts kind of seeing or striking up a friendship with, her husband comes back from jail, and by that point on, I think the story just kind of took a turn that I wasn't expecting. And although it was fine, it became more of a cat and mouse kind of A to B to C linear crime thriller, kind of story. And that wasn't really my favorite part. I like the beginning where they're kind of developing his character, and they were, they had a lot of different options. They had a lot of places that they could go with it. Where they ended up going was good, but I think it had more potential.
I think sometimes you find in movies that they get to a point where it's like, crud, we still have to tell a story. It has to still go someplace. What's going to be the challenge? What's going to be the curve that we're going to go through with these characters? I wasn't in love with the love scene. I knew they had to have it though, so you could at least understand why he was doing what he was doing in terms of protecting her and her family, if you will, as the movie moved on. I just wasn't completely sucked into it. There were parts I just really didn't care about.
Scott, a guy's face gets kicked in the elevator. You didn't like that?
I've seen
that
better
doesn't suck you in.
I've seen better kicking in a Scorsese movie and like it than I did in this
That was
movie.
a pretty good kicking in scene. It was a violent movie. Like, that was one thing I wasn't expecting, how violent it was, because there were a lot of just grisly killings. I was like, Jesus. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, it didn't do much for me. There was like only two shots that were like really grisly. I mean, trying to get a little bit on
a lot of scenes
the Tarantino territory.
The second half of it,
again, I don't think it's a film that makes up its mind of what it wants to be and where it wants to go. We're gonna be an action film, but we're gonna throw in a love story. You're a love story, but now we're gonna go back to the action. And
Scott, you see someone's face get blown apart with a shotgun in slow motion. Like, that's a pretty grisly murder.
So I guess therefore it defines a great movie for Ross. A slow motion, the head getting blown in. Let's rush to it. But you know what? That's only about 3 seconds of the movie, folks. What are you going to do with the rest of the hour?
I didn't say I made it a great
40?
movie. I'm trying to prove my point that it was a violent movie.
No, it's not a violent movie. It has violent moments in the movie.
Which make up a violent movie.
Oh, I'll give you a list of some films you might want to watch.
I think I've seen probably all of them.
One thing that I think is interesting to know about this movie too is Refn, R-E-F-N, that's his last name. He moved into an LA home, and he insisted that all the cast members and the screenwriter move in with him into this house.
Yeah.
And he also wanted an editing suite so they can cut the film there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting stuff, I think. I'm going to give Drive, unlike Ross, I do not think it's the worst movie ever made, which would be about a 1 to me, but it's not a 3 and it's not a 4 for me. I'm going to give it a 2.
Okay. I like that. I'd say see it. It's not a rush out and see, must see.
Definitely
kind of movie.
don't rush out and see it. But even if the film community is rushing out to go see it, and everyone sitting at cons is giving us standing ovation, you know what? I think it'll do you good to spend $1 and just red box it in a couple of months when it comes out. Unless you're a diehard Gosling fan, but then he's got 400 films coming out this year anyway. Yes, of course.
That's the only reason you saw the movie.
The one push I'm putting for that's coming out, that's came out today, is because we're both big fans of De Niro. His new film, The Killer Elite.
I don't know about recent De Niro as much.
Yeah, I know, exactly. This film looks promising. The trailers look promising.
I've seen like a couple commercials for it. I'm going to see Moneyball eventually, whenever we do our next review. Moneyball is kind of the one I'm excited for.
Moneyball for you, The Killer Elite for me.
We'll see, whatever I get out to see.
You know, when you find us on Facebook, let us know what movie you plan to check out, and let us know if you liked it or not.
Or movies you'd like us to see, too.
There's even a better idea. Hey,
that's probably the idea.
Until next week, for Ross Martin,
the audience, right?
I'm your host, Scott Birmingham, and this is For Your Review.